Hello and welcome to ThePrint. I'm Snehesh Alex Philip. Well, the Ops Sindoor is technically on, but the operational part is over. Now, one of the big lessons that Pakistan learned during the Operation Sindoor was the fact that every military base, or let's say the air base of Pakistan, is under the punitive strike of the Indian military. Now, several missiles were, of course, used during the operation, but one missile that really sent out a clear and a gigantic message to Pakistan by taking out the command and control centers, by taking out their airstrips, was the BrahMos missile. And to understand the genesis of BrahMos, to understand what are the capabilities of BrahMos and the road ahead, I have with me an esteemed guest, the Mr. Sudhir Mishra, who is the former MD and CEO of BrahMos Aerospace Private Limited. He headed BrahMos from 2014 till 2022 and is presently working as a DRDO chair emeritus at the DRDO headquarters here in New Delhi. At the BrahMos, he led a team of engineers and scientists to successfully develop and deliver the world's fastest supersonic cruise missile for the Indian Armed Forces. Dr. Mishra is a graduate of the Government Engineering College, Jabalpur, postgraduate in Mechanical Engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, and PhD from the National Institute of Technology, Warangal. He has more than 40 years of R&D experience in the areas of missile technology, production technology, technology management, and defense diplomacy. He has also worked as a counselor defense technology in the Embassy of India in Moscow and was member of the Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center. Now, while he was the BrahMos chief from 2014 till 2022, the interesting thing about his tenure is that both the land version, that is the BrahMos for the army, and the BrahMos for the air force, the air launched version, was introduced during his tenure. So, welcome to ThePrint. Such a pleasure to have you here, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for nice introduction.
Thank you, sir. So, BrahMos is a game-changing missile. I've always been a fan of BrahMos, and now after the Operation Sindoor is the first time people like me and actually everybody around the world have seen the BrahMos in actual action, not just in you know test launches and trials. Before we get into the nitty-gritties of BrahMos, just tell me and our viewers the genesis of BrahMos. Where did this whole BrahMos idea come from?
Yeah. Thank you, Snesh. Very interesting question. Uh, you see, Soviet Union got dissolved in the late 80s. And during that time also, they were developing and they were masters of the supersonic engine development technologies. And the engine they developed, it was a test bench model which they were unable to integrate in any missile systems. Oh, in 1993, Dr. Abdul Kalam, he visited Moscow, and in one of the meetings, he was shown this engine. And Dr. Kalam, being a very innovative mind, he said, we can make a missile around this engine. The idea was we already have developed many missile systems in IGMDP program.
Yeah.
It was one of the major program undertaken by our defense industry, defense R&D, and we have developed several technologies. So using those technologies with the engine, we were in a position to come up with a anti-ship missile. And he returned and he made a team under the leadership of Dr. Sivthanu Pillai,
The legendary
legendary missile scientist of our country. And the task given was to develop a anti-ship missile which will fly with the speed of 2.8 Mach. And Dr. Pillai, he formed a team. He created a project management strategy, completed legal framework, completed the design, development of this missile system. And it took us few years for us to come up with a proper structured program. And the work started in 1993, and in the 1998 we signed an intergovernment agreement.
Yeah.
So this agreement allowed us to go ahead, arrange the funding, and get on to deliver the missiles to the users. And the first flight test we conducted in 2001. And this missile test was watched by Indian Navy, Army, Air Force officials, and Indian Navy immediately gave the green signal. They said, we will allow one of our ship, INS Rajput,
Yeah.
to integrate the missile onto the deck and test it. And we were thrilled, because users, they keep on asking for several tests on the ground.
Yeah.
But here was the Indian Navy. They gave us the opportunity to integrate the missile system onto their ship. We conducted the test, successfully hit the target, and rest is history.
The rest is history. When was the when was the first BrahMos officially inducted into the Indian military?
It was sometime in 2007 or 8.
2007
7
or 8.
or 8, yeah.
I must say that this was the shortest development program that I've seen in the DRDO, to say, but also within the government setup itself. And
Yes.
this is where I really want to come. My next question is, now BrahMos, we all know it as a government entity, right? But the name, the BrahMos, has been instituted as BrahMos Aerospace Private Limited. Now, so is BrahMos a government entity? Now, why I'm asking this, viewers, is because it's a Indo-Russia joint venture where the Indian side has 50.5% of the shareholding, and the Russians have 49.5. So it's a 1% difference on the and India is the majority partner, but it's not 51%. It's been kept at 50.5. So why is that so?
Yeah, you have asked a very complicated question, which calls for a very long answer.
Okay.
You see, why we could develop this missile system in the shortest possible time? Many reasons are there. The first is, the DRDO was given a definite project and a time frame, and a dedicated project team was made.
Yeah.
This project team was given a definite objective, and we got the fantastic partner to work with, Russians.
Russians. Okay.
Russians, yeah. And for Russians also, it was a do or die situation, because because of the demise of the Soviet Union, they
Yeah.
were under severe financial crisis, and this was an opportunity for them also to to come up and prove something. So we got the fantastic dedicated project teams from DRDO and from NPOM Russia.
Russia.
Yeah. And the third was, we got a very clear cut funding from the government of India.
Okay.
They gave us, they said, 250 million US dollar, half of by India, half of by approximately
Yeah,
half
yeah.
by the Russians. So here was the money, here was the technology, and we got the best people from DRDO.
Yeah.
The teams were and the teams were able to access the outcome of integrated guided missile program. So everything was available, the timing was apt, the opportunity was there, and I'm extremely happy that we grabbed it and came up with the world fastest cruise missile. And we have come up with a new project structure and formulation.
Exactly.
Because first time in the country, although the FDI word came much later into the practice,
Yeah.
but really the BrahMos program was the first FDI in the defense, where 49.5%,
Yeah.
close to 125 million, was invested by a foreign partner,
Yeah.
NPOM,
Yeah.
on behalf of government of Russian Federation. So it was one of the biggest FDI in defense. And uh, we started, we were very sure that we would be able to, integrate the missile system. And we formed a company in India, BrahMos Aerospace Private Limited. You see, I always tell my engineering colleagues that you should have financial professionals as your friends,
Okay.
because they are the guy who really can make your life happy
I
or
think
miserable.
I think everyone should have a friend in finance.
Yes, and we were very fortunate that we could get a guy, uh, late Mr. Ramanathan, and Mr. Ramanathan has come up with the
He was a financial advisor.
he was a financial advisor in DRDO, and he came up with the fantastic financial structure. He said, let's make it a 50.5. It will satisfy Government of India intentions also, that we are the majority stakeholder. It will also create a private company, because the moment you cross 51, it becomes a public sector undertaking.
Yeah.
And Russians were not very enthusiastic about it. They wanted to limit to 50.5. They were very happy that it is not owned by Government of India.
Basically, they didn't want it to function like a PSU or
PSU.
government entity.
You are right. And I tell you, the biggest support for this program came from DRDO,
Okay.
because we could access the best manpower, we could access the best technologies, we could also access the resources, the technical resources of DRDO. At the same time, we were private. So we had the best of the whole world. We were working with the efficiency of a private company. We were able to tap the best manpower in the defense technology in our country, in DRDO. We also could get the best financial advisor from the additional financial,
Yeah.
our Ministry of Finance,
Yeah.
Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Finance, and we could use the academicians, the private companies in the country, the institutes in the country, IITs, ISC, and other academic, Jadavpur University, other academic institutions, and we were given the free hand by the government. The government trusted us. The moment government trusts your your risk-taking ability, it goes multifolds. And you know that if the government is supporting you, they will protect you. You follow the system which you have created as a private company.
Yeah.
You follow it, you practice it, and you can deliver the system, missile system, to the country. And that's how the BrahMos took off. And we could develop the technologies. Of course, IGMDP technologies were there, but we wanted to, every technology has to be uh, reformulated to suit the requirement of the
Absolutely.
BrahMos. And we did that. And here you have a most potent weapon system in the world with you.
Yeah.
We made it for Navy. Indian Army saw it. They said, we also would like to have it. Indian Air Force also saw the potential application of this missile system. And we are very happy that this missile could fit in to meet the requirement of Army, Navy, Air Force.
Absolutely.
All together.
Altogether. So
Yes.
initially it was planned as an anti-ship,
Anti-ship missile.
and then the army got interested. The Air Force also got interested.
Yes.
But the Air Force, interesting to viewers, the Air Force has both the variants of BrahMos. One is the air-launched version, and then you also have the surface-to-surface version that the Air Force also uses. So when did the whole concept of an air-launched BrahMos come into being? Is that something that the Air Force wanted right from the very beginning, or is this something that the BrahMos Aerospace offered? How did that happen?
Yeah, actually, what happened? The BrahMos was watched very closely by the armed forces, Indian armed forces, and globally all the armed forces. They were watching
Not
it.
surprising at all.
Yeah. And when the Indian Air Force saw the potential, the accuracy, the length, uh, capabilities
Yeah.
it can provide to them. So I'm sure they must have had a internal discussion, and they might have thought that why not you integrate this missile with the Sukhoi 30.
Okay.
You see, Sukhoi 30 aircraft is manufactured in the country,
Yeah.
and it's having Indian avionics.
Yeah.
It's having the Indian software, and we know everything about this aircraft. So it was much easy for us to integrate the BrahMos with the Sukhoi 30.
Rather than, let's say, Mirage, which was available at that
Yeah,
time.
with Mirage it was difficult. With
Yeah.
Sukhoi 30 it was much easier. And we also knew that we can reduce there is a subsystem called booster.
Yeah.
So if we are using the missile in the Sukhoi 30, then we are able to take the advantage of the momentum of the aircraft, and we can reduce the size of the booster.
Okay.
And we made, instead of metallic, we made it a composite one. So the first task we did was we made the missile lighter. The second was we created another hard point in the Sukhoi 30.
Yeah.
That called for a big change in the internal structure of the Sukhoi 30 aircraft.
Okay. Okay.
So HAL took the challenge. You would be surprised to know that Russians were asking huge money,
Yeah.
in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And HAL said, we will do it much cheaper. Around, I think, 99 crore.
Okay.
They did the whole job.
Okay.
And apart from
So
this,
from millions of dollars
yeah,
to
99 crore.
99 crore.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you see, when it comes to taking the challenge, then Indian companies, they are much ahead of rest of the world, because profit is not the motive. The motive is to ensure that our sources have access to the best technology, and they are able to make use of the capabilities of the weapon system, indigenously developed weapon system.
Okay.
So although uh, you may be thinking it's the first time, but it's not the first time. There are many other instances when HAL or Bell or BDL, they have come forward, and they have offered a very, very reasonable cost for us to integrate the weapon system onto the platforms. So uh, we had to modify the internal structure of the
Yeah.
Sukhoi 30. Second thing. Third is we had to create the launcher for it, because such big launchers who could take on the weight
Yeah.
of the BrahMos, 2.2 tons, they were not available. And they were not available not only in India, but in rest of the world also.
Okay.
We had to create it. So here the DRDO came forward. DRDO has developed the world's heaviest launcher, which I'm sure we would be using it in other missile systems also. And they made it for BrahMos. So here was the launcher, aircraft avionics ready. We integrated the aircraft to the avionics
Yeah.
of the Sukhoi 30, and the missile was made much lighter by 700 kilograms.
By 700 kilograms.
By 700. So from 2.9, we brought it to 2.2 ton.
2.2 ton.
2 ton, yeah.
So, interesting. So before I go further into the technicalities of the air launched version itself, just wanted to understand if you could explain to your viewers, how does, let's say, a surface to surface BrahMos really work? In the sense, how is it launched? And what are the stages of launch? And what kind of engine does it have? Yeah. And what is the speciality of BrahMos?
Yeah.
When you say supersonic, what is really supersonic?
Yeah. Actually, what happens when a missile or any object in the air, when it is able to move with the speed of sound, then it is called 1 Mach.
Yeah.
So if your missile can fly with the speed of twice the speed of the sound, it's called 2 Mach.
Yeah.
So this missile is able to fly with the speed of 2.8, 2.9 Mach. So 2.8, 2.9 times the speed of the sound. If you convert it to the understandable measurements, then it's about 930, 940 meters per second.
930 meters per second. 1, 2. We already covered 1.8 kilometers.
Yeah. And this, another way to understand is the speed of a bullet is about 420, 430 meters per second. So it
Wow.
flies double the speed of a bullet.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. And uh,
So which
so
means a BrahMos is fired. None of our Bollywood superstars or South Indian superstars can deflect a BrahMos being fired.
they can't deflect. Our film industry capability is to deflect the bullet, but they can't deflect the BrahMos missile.
That was on a
Much
lighter note.
lighter
I'm
weight.
not making fun of our Bollywood or neither of the southern films.
Yeah,
But yeah,
of
please go
course. It
ahead, sir.
just, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a lighter vein.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And this supersonic speed is achieved by using a supersonic ramjet engine.
Okay.
This engine is a liquid propelled, and I will just simplify the whole thing. What happens in an engine? Air is taken in, and there is a throat. So, in that, we ignite the fuel,
Yeah.
the fuel burns, and pressure is created, and this pressure is released through the nozzle,
Yeah.
and it propels the missile ahead.
Yeah.
Now, a missile needs a structure
Yeah.
where you can put the engine. You have a warhead. It needs guidance system. It needs control system. It needs different kind of materials.
Yeah.
Like if I take BrahMos, we may be using more than 400 different kind of materials.
Okay.
Yeah,
Different kind of materials.
materials in it to
Acha.
make the engine and rest of the structure.
Wow.
And then you have to launch the missile.
Yeah.
So you need a launcher.
Yeah.
Now, once you launch the missile, and now what happens? The launcher has to be movable.
Yeah.
So if you want to move it on in a in the forest or in the desert region,
Yeah.
so you need a proper vehicle.
Yeah.
Maybe 12 by 12, where
Exactly.
you can 12 by where 12 wheels are there.
Yeah, 12 by 12. Just like 4 by 4, we talk about 4 wheels moving simultaneously, 12 by 12.
12 by 12.
Yeah.
So you have to make a launcher. So the launcher should be able to launch 3 missiles, 6 missiles, 8 missiles, depending upon the size of the missile. So in
Yeah.
this, we launch about 3 missiles from
Yeah.
the launcher. And then we need a reloading vehicle.
Exactly.
So the moment you launch a missile, a space is available, so you have to relaunch it. Then you need a generator set,
Yeah.
which will be able to supply power,
Power
to the whole
it
thing.
and all.
Then we need a command and control center. So command and control center will be able to feed in the target. It will be able to do all kind of activities by which the missile would be able to launch, reach to the target.
Yeah.
Then you need to have a kind of maintenance vehicle,
Yeah.
which will carry out the small maintenance.
Yeah.
So this all is a configuration of a missile system, and this I'm talking about the land to land,
Yeah.
a ground control system. This ground control system is common in almost all the ground launched missile.
Yeah. So when a missile is fired, you talked about the two-stage process. So what is that?
Yeah. So what happens once a missile is launched? Now initially it will be launching from in the vertical position.
Yeah.
So now it has to turn the direction.
Exactly.
It has
So
to
the
become
missile
the
goes.
horizontal.
So if, I'll put out. As you can see on the screen, this is how a BrahMos is launched. So it goes. It's a vertical launch. It goes up, and as you can see on your screen, it now takes the turn.
Yeah. So there is a motor.
Yeah.
Motor means there are solid motors, solid propellant motors are there.
Yeah.
These motors are fired depending upon the orientation of the missile.
Okay.
So once the motors are fired, the missile will take the turn.
Yeah.
And then this cover is ejected out.
Yeah.
Now what happens? The air intake gets open.
Yeah.
Now there is a booster phase. Initial booster phase will be there.
Yeah.
Why the booster phase? Because the ramjet motor cannot start in the stationary condition.
Yes.
It needs to be in the moving, because you take the air in, you burn it, and then you exhaust the air. So this needs a booster. Now the booster takes the missile to certain speed.
Yeah.
1.2, 1.3. And once the missile reaches to that, the booster is ejected out, then the sustainer is taken in. So sustainer is the vehicle which is having the warhead and which takes the missile to the destination.
To the destination, to
To
the
the
target.
destination, yeah. So now it becomes much lighter.
It becomes much
The
lighter.
yeah, the booster weight is gone, ejector weight, the motor which ejects out is gone. Now you have only the sustainer.
The
So
sustainer.
sustains, yeah. Sustainer moves with the speed of
So
2.8 Mach.
So during the Operation Sindoor, there were multiple pictures and videos of these long black objects that were there, and I still remember, many people tweeting saying that these are missiles and all. Of course, because I've spoken to you in the past, because you and others have always told me things. So I realized that these are the booster elements of the BrahMos. It's actually green in color. It looks black on the screen, but it's actually green in color, something of that sort, sir.
Yeah, you see what happens, the users basically decide the color of the
Okay.
missile.
Okay.
So sometime it is green, sometime when we test it, we make it a black and white square,
Okay.
so
Okay,
that
yeah.
it tells us that it was a test flight.
Yeah.
It's a user, they may choose the color.
So the booster is fairly long.
It's fairly long, yeah.
Its booster is fairly long. So then what happened? So initially, when BrahMos was launched, was introduced, it had a range of 290 kilometers, right? Because if you could explain to our viewers why it was so.
Yeah. You see, India is a signatory to Missile Technology Control Regime. We call it MTCR.
Yeah.
So MTCR restricts the range of the missile to 300 kilometers. And because this was a joint venture
Yeah.
between India and Russia, so we have limited the range of the missile to 300 kilometers. Now, what happens in Operation Sindoor? You see, Indian side has never claimed that we have used the BrahMos. It is the Pakistan.
Except for Prime Minister Narendra Modi in his speeches,
Yes.
has referred to the BrahMos.
Yeah.
And it's not a hidden fact. Everybody knows that BrahMos was used. And I think when the Air Force will put out the details of the Operation Sindoor, India should proudly claim of the fact that yes, BrahMos was used. It was even though we'll talk about it later. Even though it's an Indo-US joint venture, the fact is that most of the BrahMos, at least close to about 80-85% of the BrahMos, is now indigenized. So so I would call it, rather than just as an Indo-Russian joint venture, this is actually more or less like an Indian missile now.
Yeah. In fact, I'm very proud to say that our Prime Minister has declared that this was a Atmanirbhar war.
Yeah.
Where most of the Indian systems were used. Of course, exceptions are there.
Yeah, of course, exceptions
but
are there.
Most of the Indian systems were used, and BrahMos is close to 80% Indian.
Yeah.
And this indigenization is still going on.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I think the target is about 86 by next year.
Yeah. So, but I'm very happy that Pakistan Prime Minister has also complained.
Yeah.
That we were hit with the BrahMos. We were badly hit, and he was running like a headless chicken.
Yeah.
Headless chicken. He was running here and there and saying that I'm hit with the BrahMos.
So, interesting, because Shekhar Gupta in his Cut the Clutter had mentioned that the biggest brand ambassador for BrahMos is actually Pakistan Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif. Because he, as you rightly said, was flabbergasted and was complaining that BrahMos hit them.
Yes. In fact, I want to tell you one very short story.
Please do.
Yeah, it was in Dubai. Abu Dhabi, sorry, not Dubai. Abu Dhabi naval show. And in the naval show, you see, the ships from various countries, they come and they allow public to visit them.
On board, come on board and see.
Yeah. So a big Pakistani delegation, it was visiting us.
Okay.
And they were very much interested in picking up the goodies. In the exhibitions, you distribute the gifts, small gifts. So we
have some keychains.
Yeah, we very proudly given them the gifts.
Yeah.
And you see, our enemies are when we are in the sea, rest, we are friends. So on the ground, we welcome everybody to come and witness our exhibitions. So one of the guy, he was very keen, enthusiastic. So he asked us in the Abu Dhabi, what's the price of this missile? And and I was, I was just standing there, and one of my colleague, so he replied, Praveen.
Wow.
So he replied very proudly. He said, "Sir, for you it's free of cost."
That was a
That was it done.
that
So
was a
so now I want to tell you interesting thing
huh.
that our armed forces, they have, completed the promise of Praveen given in the Abu Dhabi
Given in
by,
Abu Dhabi.
by sending the BrahMos free of cost to
Free of
Pakistan.
cost to Pakistan.
Yeah.
Now, viewers, those who are wondering who Praveen is, he's referring to Pravin Patak. He's the spokesperson for the BrahMos. Amazing guy who's been with BrahMos for long.
Yeah.
So yes, that's what he's talking about. But that's a very witty reply
Yes.
that was given to him.
Yeah.
So now as far as the BrahMos now air launched version. So you mentioned about how the surface launch happens. Now the air launched, you said that the weight has been reduced completely, and we talked about distances. So the 390 kilometers, 290 was the kilometers, but now I'm told that uh, uh, under your own in your tenure, and if I'd done a story on this, I think this was in 2019 or 2020.
19, yeah.
2019.
Air version, yeah.
Where the air version was there, and we had increased the range of the BrahMos. So it was no longer 290. If I'm not mistaken, we had increased to about 450, 500 kilometers. Am I right, sir?
You see, range is a, you can say, there are certain things which are prerogative of the users.
Huh.
So they decide
Okay.
what to say, what not to say.
Okay.
So I would prefer to not venture into the range business.
Okay.
But what happens once you integrate a missile onto aircraft?
Yeah.
The range becomes immaterial.
Okay.
Because the range of the aircraft, you see, Sukhoi 30 is 3,400 kilometer range.
So when he says 3,400 kilometers range, matlab it can travel about 1,700 kilometers one way and then return 1,700 kilometers back without mid-air refueling. So if you do mid-air refueling, of course, the range increases.
Yeah. So now you understand that the range, even if you put a 290 kilometer, it can perform a missile having range of thousands of kilometers. So the Sukhoi 30 range, without refueling, with refueling, now it has increased to thousands of kilometers.
Yeah.
So so now the range is. I will like to answer your question in indirect manner.
Okay.
We have set up the. We have based one of our squadron in South India.
Yeah. Everybody knows in Tanjavur.
It's Tanjavur. It's published in the newspaper. Everybody know it. So this squadron is equipped with Sukhoi 30 BrahMos.
Yeah.
And the objective is to ensure security, energy security in Indian Ocean, Bay of Bengal, and Arabian Sea.
Arabian Sea.
Yeah. And if it has to fly in the Indian Ocean, it has to fly thousands of kilometers.
Exactly.
This side, that side, here Africa up to Indonesia and all that. So you have to provide security. So that's what makes the BrahMos a very potent, very powerful weapon into the hands of Indian armed forces.
Okay. While he's not talking about the range, I can tell viewers here is the fact that while initially it was 290 kilometers, it was eventually increased to about 450, and right now the range is much higher. I'm talking about the land versions. I'll soon do a story on the BrahMos. Once India officially claims the BrahMos, we'll of course do a story and explain the range capability. But even when you talk about, let's say, a normal air launched missile, science would say that the air launched version will always have a longer range than a ground version, surface to surface version. Why is that so?
You see, what happens, you always derive the advantage of the momentum of the aircraft, mother aircraft.
Yeah.
This is one. At the same time, I would like to tell you that India, even when we didn't sign the MTCR, we were MTCR compliant nation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now also we are MTCR signatory and we are complying with all the provisions of it.
Yeah.
So,
Because I think because now it is everything has been done indigenized. So
indigenized manner.
every technology that has been used to increase the range is Indian technology. Is India developed technology. It is not a joint collaboration technology. It's an India developed technology.
You see what happens, like whatever missiles you make indigenously, it can have uh, range suiting to your security.
Yeah.
And uh, with the moment you integrate any missile, including BrahMos, with the aircraft, the range becomes really immaterial.
Yeah.
And here we take the advantage of the mother aircraft speed also, velocity also. So it helps.
It helps. So basically, what he's trying to say, or what I was asking him, is whether when it's an air launch, whether the range, the normal missile range, would automatically get longer. Just the standoff range itself. I'm not talking about the range of the aircraft, which it does. So the fact is that had India gone ahead and carried on with the air launch, with the BrahMos strikes, and which Pakistan claims that all BrahMos were launched from air, that India has not said anything so far. It is the Pakistanis which have claimed so far. The fact is that India could have struck every single military airbase in Pakistan from one end to the other using just the BrahMos. So, and the BrahMos is the longest range missile that we have, and I'm not getting to the specific ranges, but that's a fact. So, during your tenure, now the Sukhoi can carry only one BrahMos, right? During your tenure, I had myself done this story, and BrahMos had spoken about it also, is the BrahMos NG, which is the BrahMos next generation. But before I come to the BrahMos NG, sir, I just want to tell my viewers that you have the BrahMos, then you have the BrahMos ER, which is the extended range that I'm talking about. So, what is a BrahMos NG?
Yeah. You see, the BrahMos is a heavy duty missile.
Yeah,
In the sense, its weight is very high,
of course.
and uh, it carries much higher warhead also. Now, we thought that why not we miniaturize the missiles? Now, we have already miniaturized many systems,
Yeah.
subsystems of the missile. So we thought, why not we come up with a newer missile, which will be using the current technology. And because here we are still using about 30-year-old technology.
Yeah.
So let's miniaturize. Here, let's use the miniaturized technology. Number one. Number two, make it a slim trim so that many more missiles can be packaged into the given area.
Oh, so which you mean to say that while right now Sukhoi carries only one BrahMos, if it's a BrahMos NG, it will be able to
It can
carry
be
more
five.
missiles.
Yeah.
It can be five.
It can be five.
Oh,
Because
wow.
there are five hard points available where this missile would be able to get integrated. So it will have much reduced weight. It will have much reduced size. So you can integrate onto five onto Sukhoi, maybe much more onto the land system.
Okay.
Instead of three, we can have maybe 9.
So BrahMos NG will also be a land and ship.
Yeah. We are, in fact, what happens, we are trying to make a universal missile.
Okay.
This universal missile, which can be launched from ship, land, air,
Wow.
which will have much lower size, but at the same time, it will be equally potential, and it would be able to engage maybe many more targets than what our current missile can engage.
What do you mean by when you say can engage more targets?
Yeah, you see what happens, like this present missile is not air to air. Maybe BrahMos
wow.
NG we can make air to air also.
Air to air.
Air to air means not against fighter aircraft,
Okay.
but against AWACS, against transport
Transporters,
aircraft,
refuelers.
military. Yeah, against
military.
refuelers.
Okay.
So we can make a missile like that also. You see, if you have a missile which can do all the three functions, which can engage a air-to-air target, which can have air-to-land target, air-to-ship target. So it's a, you are giving a lot of potential to our armed forces.
Wow.
So,
Just to even think about this whole concept which the BrahMos is working on is just amazing. BrahMos in such multiple forms and in such multiple kinds of strikes. So when you're reducing the weight of the missile, when you're reducing, let's say, the boosters and other things that are there, would the distance also get impacted?
you mean the
The range of the
engagement
missile.
range?
Yeah.
No. This missile also would have 300 kilometers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you see, we have acquired uh, land at Lucknow and already set up the unit.
Yeah, the defense
So
minister Rajnath Singh had
yes,
inaugurated
inaugurated
the
it.
facility.
So we would be, undertaking the development and manufacturing work at the new place.
Okay, so
We
I
should.
can I can fairly assume that in over the next 3 years you would have the BrahMos NG being tested.
I feel before that
Oh, before that,
we should be able to test it much before that.
much before that. Okay,
Much before
given the
that.
space at which the BrahMos Aerospace works, that's quite a possibility. Very much a possibility, I would say.
And there is a new team, the new team led by Dr. Jaitirth Joshi.
Okay.
Very efficient, very impressive, very full of enthusiasm and
Acha.
energy.
Acha, okay.
So I'm sure they would deliver it much earlier.
Much earlier.
Much
So
earlier.
he's
They should
talking
deliver.
about the current DRDO chief, sorry, the
No,
current
current
BrahMos
BrahMos
chief.
chief.
And I should also mention the current DRDO chief also, who's just got his second extension.
Yes.
And he is also someone who is at the forefront.
He is a fantastic scientist.
Yeah.
And a person who supports your all right moves. And he is a legendary material scientist. I'm not talking about in India.
Yeah.
He's a worldwide known scientist.
Yes.
And under his leadership, DRDO and BrahMos would be able to deliver this missile system uh, to suit to meet the requirement of our armed forces. I'm very sure.
I'm absolutely sure about that, viewers, and I'll also try and get an interview with the DRDO chief as well as the current BrahMos chief in subsequent editions of this program. But so, correct me if I'm wrong. For example, when BrahMos NG was being spoken about, BrahMos wanted an air-to-air capability. But I think this was also proposed initially in the earlier BrahMos also, right? And the Air Force was not so keen on that. Am I right? Or
You see, what happens when you make a universal missile, there are people. You see, one thing I want to tell you, the BrahMos is a teamwork.
yeah,
It's a result of a teamwork of many, many bright people, maybe in hundreds.
yeah,
It's difficult to name those people,
sure,
but a lot of people have contributed in the development of BrahMos.
yeah,
Now, at some point, the users were asking, can you make it air to air? We said, yes, we did study and we said we can do it. But what happens, I'm talking about 7, 8 years back.
okay,
That time also there were problems like data link, but now we have Air Force,
yeah,
all the places are
yeah,
networked,
I know,
which Air Force has declared themselves
yeah,
that
yeah,
everything is networked now.
yeah,
So that's available. Then there were limitations because the development time it would have taken more, and somehow the Air Force thought that they have better options available, which they can use as a air to air role, and technically speaking, yes, even now it is possible to make it a air to air.
okay.
Technically,
Technically,
as
it
a
is
scientist,
possible.
I can say it is very much possible, but may not be feasible
Okay,
because that role can be done by the new BrahMos, or we have Astra missile.
yeah,
Astra can also do that role.
yeah,
So, and this is much heavier missile. So, I feel it's much more efficient for Astra and maybe BrahMos NG to take a role of air to air.
okay. But but the Astra cannot cover the distance or the range that the BrahMos can, the air launched version.
You see, Astra is for fighter
Fighter
aircraft.
aircraft. Also, that is the
Yeah.
I actually wanted to if you could explain. Some of our viewers would be wondering why that you can target a refueler or you can target a AVAX or a transport aircraft, military transport aircraft, but you can't target a fighter. Why is that so?
Yeah, actually, what happens? A fighter aircraft, it moves with a great speed. Sometime once you put afterburner, it can be two more Mach also,
Yeah,
maybe more than three Mach
yeah.
also to evade the missile.
Highly maneuverable.
Highly maneuverable. So your missile has to be three times more maneuverable than that to engage the target.
Absolutely.
So Astra would is a very it's a very quick action missile, and Astra is designed to engage the fighter aircraft.
Yeah.
Whereas the BrahMos being heavy, uh, it is main purpose is not air to air.
Yeah.
The main purpose is something else. So, but it can still move with around 2G, 2.5G. So the
When you say move, you mean the
move
turning,
maneuverable, yeah,
maneuver. Yeah.
turning. So a transport aircraft or AVAX or refueler, they move. They the maximum they can maneuver is about 1.8 G,
Okay.
1.9 G,
Okay.
whereas this can move 6G, 7G. So it is much easier for this missile to engage the heavier
Heavier.
aircrafts. Yeah.
And at a much longer distance. Viewers, I promised you I'll come up with a story very soon on the BrahMos and the ranges that the BrahMos has been able to achieve. And this is something that India should be proud of. But so going ahead, you of course now have BrahMos. Now it's BrahMos is something that multiple countries are eyeing for. India, one of the biggest defense export order came to the BrahMos, where India sold BrahMos missile systems to Philippines, and that was a anti-ship system that was there. Now I can tell you viewers that Philippines is now looking at more missiles,
Yeah.
but India is also in talks with other countries, because other countries have also reached out to India wanting to know about BrahMos, wanting BrahMos. So from an export point of view, what is the future of BrahMos?
You see, I don't have access to the internal information.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can only tell you what I read in the media.
Hmm.
The media says that Vietnam is very much interested.
Okay.
Philippines, in addition to Philippines,
Yes.
there is Indonesia,
Yeah.
then Middle East,
Yes.
and then Africa, South America. South America's possible, yes. You see, for any missile to prove its mettle in the battleground, that is the best test,
Yeah.
if you can prove it. And BrahMos has proved its mettle. Now, there are many countries who are watching. Uh, they have watched the performance of this missile.
BrahMos.
They also have done the study,
Yeah.
got done the study done by their specialists. So I'm sure that this number will not limit to the number which I have told.
Yeah.
It will be much more than that. And this missile has great capability. This missile, if used properly, strategically, this missile can become a, I will say, peacemaker. Dr. Kalam used to say one very interesting thing. He used to tell us that missiles are weapons of peace.
Yeah. I completely agree with him.
Yeah.
I truly believe that.
The reason is the if enemy. You see, India has never been a offending country.
Has never
We
been an
never
aggressor.
offended. We never attacked anybody. India has always defended. So if enemy know that they will be punished with the missiles like BrahMos, then they will think 1,000 times before attacking, before creating problems for us. India is on a different trajectory. We want to become a developed country by 2047. We don't want to fight a war.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if somebody forces a war, if somebody creates a problem for us, certainly we would retaliate. And this being a weapon of peace, I'm sure that this time the peace will be for much longer time on our western side. And any country which wants to ensure peace on their borders, they would like to buy BrahMos like missile, and they will certainly. I'm sure they must have already sent their inquiries to Government of India,
Yeah.
asking for us, for asking for the missile. But when it comes to the export, it's not only a commercial deal.
Absolutely.
It's a you have to think about the friendship, you have to think about strategic interest,
Yeah.
you have to think about
The customer
into the
also, who the
future,
customer is.
into the
Yeah.
future,
Yeah.
10 years, 20
Yeah.
years, 30 years. So I'm sure this will bring a lot of revenue to our country.
Absolutely, there is no doubt about it. And going forward, BrahMos is going to be the one of the mainstays for the Indian military, for not just anti-ship, not just surface to surface, but also from air to surface, and God willingly, from air to air as well. Now, he rightly mentioned that missiles are weapons of peace. I have this often this discussion with Mr. Shekhar Gupta, and he keeps saying this. We both keep saying this fact that a strong military or spending on defense and creating a strong military doesn't mean that you're looking for war. A strong military is needed not to fight wars. A strong military is needed to deter war. That is a thing. But thank you so much, Mr. Mishra, for your service, for BrahMos, and for talking to our viewers. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Snesh.
Thank you.
Enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.